Hello and good afternoon. I hope everybody is doing well. Today we are in our last section for Chapter 4 in Geometry. It's Section 4-6, and it is Congruence in Right Triangles by Hypotenuse Leg, or HL for short. What I'd like for you to be able to do by the end of class is to be able to prove that two triangles are congruent by using the hypotenuse leg theorem. So first of all, what is the hypotenuse leg theorem? And it says if the hypotenuse and a leg of a right triangle are congruent to the hypotenuse and leg of another right triangle, then the triangles are congruent. So here we have a hypotenuse and a hypotenuse being congruent, a leg and a leg being congruent, and they're both right triangles. Because I have these things met, I can then say that triangle ABC is congruent to triangle DEF. Once again, the order of the letters does matter. Now, if you want to use the hypotenuse leg theorem, or HL theorem for short, you need to have three things in order for this to work. First of all, you have to have right triangles. Like, you can't do this with like an obtuse triangle or something like that. So they must both be right triangles. You also must have both of the hypotenuses congruent. So the triangles have congruent hypotenuses. And finally, they also need one pair of legs that are congruent. It doesn't matter which one, just as long as it has a pair of them. So there is a pair of congruent legs. Alrighty. So if we have all of these three things met, then we are able to use the hypotenuse leg theorem. Let's see that in action down here. It says, determine if you can use the hypotenuse leg congruence theorem to prove that the triangles are congruent. If not, tell what else you need to know. So on this first one, I know that this guy is also a right angle because when two lines meet at a right angle, all four angles are going to be right. I have these two hypotenuses being congruent, but I still need a pair of legs to be congruent. Well, notice because these two triangles share this center line, I can say that it is congruent to itself. So now I have two right triangles, I have two congruent hypotenuses, and I have a leg that is congruent to itself. Therefore, yes, I can use the hypotenuse leg theorem. All right, let's look at the next one. Here, I have two right triangles, and I can tell based off of the angles markings right here. I also have a leg being congruent to a leg. Now, if you're wondering, how can I tell which side is the hypotenuse and how can I tell which side is the leg? The hypotenuse is the longest side of the triangle. I'll write that over here to the side just to remind you. And it is opposite of the right angle. All right, so notice here's my right angle, opposite of that, so this guy's the hypotenuse. Opposite of this one, this guy's the hypotenuse. So in this second problem, problem B, all I have is two right triangles and a pair of congruent legs. I don't have a pair of congruent hypotenuses. So not enough information so far. We need the hypotenuses to be congruent also. If we had that, then we would be able to use hypotenuse-leg theorem. Looking at this last example, here we have two right triangles. I have this guy down here. That's a right triangle. And then I have this guy up here. That's a right triangle. I also have them sharing a side once again. They are sharing their hypotenuse this time. So I'm going to say the hypotenuse is congruent to itself. The only issue is I have no way of showing that the legs are congruent to each other. So all I have are two of the things required. Remember up here, they must both be right triangles. I have that taken care of. They must have congruent hypotenuses. I have that taken care of. But they don't have a pair of congruent legs. I can't say, I just don't have enough information. So not enough info. We need a pair of legs to be congruent. Once we get that, then we would be able to use the hypotenuse-leg theorem. But we don't have it yet, so we just have to leave it as is. Flip that paper over and let's look at example 2. It says triangle ABC and triangle PQR are right triangular sections of a fire escape, as shown. Is each story the same height? Explain. So I am going to kind of highlight in this a little bit for you. I have this triangle up here, and I have this triangle down here. And I want you to notice that they are both right triangles. Both of them have congruent hypotenuses, and both of them have a pair of congruent legs. So, once again, they are both right triangles. I have a pair of congruent hypotenuses, and I have a pair of congruent legs. So right off the bat, I can say, oh, hey, those two triangles are congruent. So triangle ABC and triangle PQR are congruent because of the hypotenuse-leg theorem. These met all three of the requirements from the previous page. Now I have the two triangles being congruent. Now a couple sections back, we talked about something called CP-CTC, and that was corresponding parts of congruent triangles are congruent. So I can use that next because it's asking, is each story the same height? So I'm trying to figure out, is from here to here the same as from here to here? That's what I'm trying to answer. Well, are those side lengths congruent? Yes, they are, because the triangles themselves are congruent. So I'm going to say segment CB is congruent to segment RQ because corresponding parts of congruent triangles are congruent. Therefore, the stories are the same height. And there you have it. Let's look at our final example. It's a proof. Remember to not let it intimidate you. Just take it one step at a time and we'll be able to get through it. So it says, given segment AB is congruent to segment CD, and angle B and angle C are right angles. So this is telling us right now that I have two right triangles in this problem because it gave us C and B are 90 degrees. So what else did it say? It said AB is congruent to CD, so I'm going to mark that, AB congruent to CD. Let's go ahead and write in our first step to our proof. So step 1 is to rewrite what we were told. So AB is congruent to segment CD, and angle B and angle C are right angles. Okay, very good. Why do we know that? It was given to us. Okay, now we're moving on to step 2. So far, I have an angle and an angle, so I have 2 right angles, and I have a pair of legs. I also need the hypotenuses to be congruent. But notice that they share a hypotenuse. That means that it is congruent to itself. They have the same length, therefore. So I'm going to say segment AD is congruent to segment AD. What property is that? When it is exactly the same on both sides, that is called the reflexive property. Okay, now I'm at the point where I have 2 right triangles, a pair of legs that are congruent, and hypotenuse is congruent. So remember, those are the 3 things that I need. I need them both to be right triangles, I need the hypotenuses to match, and I need 1 pair of legs to match. We have met our requirements from this image, so now I can say, yes, triangle ABD is in fact congruent to triangle DCA. Why? Because of the hypotenuse leg theorem. And there we have it. We're all done with today's notes. If you have questions, please make sure to bring them to me in class tomorrow. We will be practicing with this, and because this is the last section of notes, the test will be coming up relatively soon. So happy studying, and I look forward to seeing you in class tomorrow. Bye.